Hello, this is Mark Lewis from Medscape. I am the Director of Gastrointestinal Oncology at Intermountain Healthcare in Salt Lake City, Utah. And I'm recording this video on March 11th, 2020. I think it's important to timestamp this recording because I'm going to address an issue that is literally changing by the day. And that is, of course, the coronavirus and the disease it causes, COVID-19. This is truly an issue of global concern. Earlier today, the World Health Organization officially declared it a pandemic, meaning this is a viral illness that we may not be able to contain. We may simply have to mitigate its spread and the effects on patients. I'd also like to give my profound thanks to colleagues in the global healthcare community, especially those in China and Italy, who have been so brave and gracious in sharing with us all what they've been seeing in their clinical settings. The reporting, the on-the-ground reporting, whether through social media or even through traditional journals, has been absolutely remarkable and harrowing in its detail. In particular, some of the work out of China that was published almost contemporaneously in the New England Journal of Medicine really gave us a perspective into the first several thousand cases that they had seen there and the outcomes thereof. So why is an oncologist talking about coronavirus? Well, first of all, as I've stated, this is an issue of now universal concern. Secondly, cancer patients and other patients with significant comorbidities are particularly at risk for the effects of COVID-19. One of the analyses published in The Lancet from our Chinese colleagues showed that cancer patients are 5-fold more likely to suffer severe effects from coronavirus compared to the average member of the population. I suspect that's because either intrinsically or through the after effects of treatment, cancer can create immunocompromise. And while I tend to see patients at their peak when they're coming back for their next chemo treatment, there's no doubt that chemotherapy can be cyclic in its effects on the immune system, and patients at their nadir after treatment may be particularly vulnerable to infection. I'm also discussing this because I've heard a lot of dismissive statistics around the coronavirus, and in particular the case fatality rate. So I want to talk about that for a second. So case fatality rate, or CFR, is a fraction. The denominator is the number of affected people. The numerator, and I cannot state this any more starkly, is the number of people that have died. We cannot rest until the numerator is as close to zero as we can possibly make it. And when we say things like the case fatality rate is only 3% or is only in the low single digits, I think we're dramatically minimizing the impact on the population scale. If you take a tiny coefficient and multiply it by a massive number, you can still end up with a very substantial number. Dr. Anthony Fauci, who's done a marvelous job communicating to the American public about this disease, estimated today that tens of millions of Americans will be affected by the illness. So if you take that sum and multiply it by even a tiny fraction, that is thousands and thousands of people dying. And so when we say it's only the flu, first of all, this is an emerging disease. We're still learning its characteristics relative to other viruses. In fact, its very novelty is both unsettling intellectually and troubling biologically because we don't have immunity to it. Secondly, our best current estimate is that its mortality risk is likely tenfold that of seasonal influenza. So this is not something to be taken lightly or joked about. And lastly, the reason I take this so personally is that 3 years ago, I had a cancer surgery on my pancreas, the Whipple operation, for which I was cited a 3% mortality rate. And I remember at the time I was consenting for the procedure, that number seemed low. But the night before the operation, I couldn't sleep because that number loomed large. I had a dark night of the soul. I thought, well, when I wake up in the morning, I have a 1 in 33 chance of dying. And that was profoundly disturbing, to say the least. So my heart goes out to everybody that's thinking about this, dealing with this, contemplating their own mortality. I'd also remind everyone that we have an ethical obligation to protect the most vulnerable among us. You might think that you're young and healthy and not at risk. You might be right about that. Maybe the silver lining of this disease is it seems to leave children relatively unaffected. But let's not forget that it's also highly transmissible through surface contact and respiratory droplets. And we really owe it to those among us who are sicker, who have cancer, the elderly. We have to protect them. We have to band together and protect them. We can get through this together, but not by an individualistic mindset of panic buying and hoarding, more through the best kind of groupthink of how do we address this threat collectively. So I'd like to close with a line of poetry from Philip Larkin that I think really resonates with me at this moment in time. We must be careful of each other. We must be kind while there is still time. For Medscape, this is Mark Lewis, and I truly wish all of you the best of health.